What would you do if a woman tried to shove a pony into your hotel elevator, claiming it is an emotional support mount? Or if a customer screamed at a nail salon because they refused to buff her python scales? We tracked down the most unhinged pet owners in America who think rules do not apply to them. From hamsters suing Uber drivers to chickens demanding free iPads. You won't believe these are real. Hit subscribe before your own cat demands a lawyer, and let's see the chaos. 1. An wealthy older woman walked into a high-end Michelin star restaurant carrying a tiny chihuahua in a designer purse. She demanded the chef prepare their finest $100 Wagyu steak, not for herself, but for the trembling dog. The waiter hesitantly served the masterpiece on a fine china plate. The woman took one look at the meat and screamed in horror. She claimed the plating was not artistic enough for her dog's Instagram followers. The entire dining room went silent as she threw the steak on the floor. The waiter stood frozen in disbelief while the dog ignored the meat and licked the floor tiles. 2. A determined middle-aged mother marched into Pottery Barn with a screeching carrier box in her hand. She walked straight to the most expensive Italian leather sofa on the showroom floor and unzipped the bag. A sharp-clawed Siamese cat leaped out and immediately began shredding the pristine leather armrest. A young sales associate sprinted over in panic to stop the destruction. The woman pushed the employee away and insisted she needed to let the cat finish his work. She claimed she could not buy the couch without a proper durability test. The associate watched in tears as the cat turned the $3,000 sofa into confetti. 3. A young woman walked into a busy nail salon holding a large wriggling sack. She sat in the plush massage chair and pulled out a 6-foot-long ball python snake. The nail technician screamed and jumped back, knocking over a tray of expensive polishes. The woman rolled her eyes and demanded the technician buff the snake's scales immediately. She explained that he was feeling ugly and needed to feel pretty for a big date. The manager ran over shaking with fear and asked her to leave the shop. The woman refused to move until her snake got his clear coat applied. The other customers watched in horror as the snake flicked his tongue at the drying fans. 4. A frantic elderly woman burst through the double doors of the emergency room clutching a heavy glass bowl. Water splashed everywhere as she screamed for a doctor to help her immediately. The triage nurse rushed over expecting a serious human injury, but saw only a goldfish. The woman insisted her fish needed a hospital bed right next to hers. She claimed the fish was sympathetically sick because they shared a deep psychic bond. The doctor tried to explain that they do not treat aquatic pets in the trauma center. The woman fell to the floor weeping and holding the bowl up. The security guard sighed and radioed for backup as the fish swam in circles. 5. A corporate executive in a sharp suit slammed the door of her Uber black vehicle. She placed a small cage on the leather seat next to her and signaled the driver to go. The car hit a minor pothole on the highway, and the woman erupted in rage. She screamed that the driver had scrambled her hamster's delicate equilibrium with his reckless driving. The driver looked in the rearview mirror completely confused by the outburst. She demanded he pull over and apologize to the hamster for the emotional distress. The driver tried to stay calm while the woman checked the rodent for vertigo. She threatened to sue the rideshare company for damaging the hamster's inner ear. 6. An intense mother arrived at the kindergarten drop-off line with a massive gray beast on a thick chain. The other parents grabbed their children and backed away in pure terror. The principal ran outside and told the woman she could not bring a wolf onto school property. The mother laughed and argued that he was not a pet, but a perimeter security consultant. She insisted the playground was unsafe and her wolf needed to patrol the sandbox. The teachers barricaded the doors while the animal growled at a passing butterfly. The mother stood her ground, claiming the school was rejecting free safety measures. The police arrived just as the wolf tried to eat a lunchbox. 7. A confused woman stood at the Genius bar with a live chicken under her arm. The employees stared in disbelief as the bird pecked at the sleek glass tables. The woman slammed a sticky iPad onto the counter and demanded a full replacement. She explained that her hen had laid an egg directly on the screen, which caused a crack. She insisted the company owed her a new device for the emotional damages her chicken suffered. The technician tried to explain that farm accidents were not covered by the warranty. The woman screamed that her chicken's creativity was being stifled. The bird clucked loudly in agreement as security approached the pair to escort them out. 8. An elegant socialite walked into Tiffany & Co., wearing a fur coat and holding a plastic container. She bypassed the engagement rings and slammed the box on the main counter. The manager approached with a smile until he saw the hermit crab crawling inside. The woman demanded the jeweler craft a custom platinum shell encrusted with real diamonds for her pet. She claimed the crab was depressed because his current shell was too generic for his high status. The staff looked at each other in confusion while the crab hid in his cheap shell. The woman threw her credit card down and insisted money was no object for her baby's happiness. 9. A Bohemian woman strolled into the produce section of Whole Foods with a 50-pound pig on a leash. Shoppers gasped as the pig trotted over to the display of organic apples. The woman smiled and lifted the pig so he could take huge bites directly from the bin. An employee rushed over to stop the health code violation. The woman argued that her pig was a certified organic inspector and needed to test for freshness. She claimed he could taste pesticides that human tongues missed, and they should be grateful. The pig finished 3 apples and burped loudly while the manager dialed the police. The woman refused to pay for the snacks. 10. A tanned woman argued with the front desk staff at a Planet Fitness gym. She held a gym bag that had a green tail sticking out. The manager told her that pets were strictly prohibited in the tanning area. The woman screamed that her iguana had a seasonal deficiency and required artificial UV exposure immediately. She tried to push past the turnstile, claiming the lizard paid for a black card membership. The staff blocked her path while other gym members watched the drama. The woman insisted her iguana just wanted to look bronzed for the summer season. The lizard hissed loudly from inside the bag as she was banned from the club forever. 11. A young woman stood before the judge in traffic court with a large cage covered by a thick cloth. The judge asked where her lawyer was since she was facing serious fines for speeding. She whipped off the cover to reveal a gray parrot perched inside. She told the court she did not need a human attorney because her bird knew the law perfectly. The parrot squawked and started reciting random numbers that sounded like legal statutes. The bailiff stepped forward to remove the bird, but the woman screamed objection. She claimed the parrot had passed the bar exam in international waters. The judge slammed his gavel down and threatened contempt while the bird whistled at him. 12. A fancy guest at a Marriott hotel tried to squeeze a small pony through the lobby doors. The front desk clerk jumped over the counter to stop the animal from entering the elevator. The woman insisted the horse was an emotional support mount for her severe fear of heights. She claimed she could not ride the elevator without gripping his mane for stability. The pony neighed and kicked a luggage cart while guests scattered in fear. The manager explained that horses exceeded the weight limit for the lift. The woman argued that he was on a diet and demanded a room on the top floor immediately. The pony refused to back out of the sliding doors. 13. A suburban father walked onto a crowded public playground carrying a leash made of heavy chain. He lifted a tiger cub and placed it directly into the toddler bucket swing. Other parents grabbed their babies and ran to the parking lot screaming. The man pushed the swing gently and told everyone to calm down. He claimed the tiger was there for their safety to scare away potential bullies. A terrified mother called the police from behind a slide while the cub chewed the plastic chains. The man insisted the tiger just wanted to play tag with the kids. The sirens wailed in the distance as the cub fell asleep in the swing. 14. A makeup enthusiast stood at the display counter in Sephora holding a large glass jar. She opened the lid and carefully pulled out a hairy tarantula the size of a dinner plate. The beauty advisor froze in terror as the woman grabbed a sample wand of mascara. She tried to apply the black paste to the spider's hairy legs to check for clumps. Shoppers fled the aisle while the woman complained about the brush density. She insisted her spider needed volume for his legs to look their best for a photo shoot. Security guards surrounded her but were too afraid to touch the spider. The store closed early while the woman demanded a discount for the bad service. 15. A sophisticated lady attended an exclusive wine tasting event carrying a tank of water. She interrupted the sommelier during his speech about vintage grapes. She demanded the host provide a glass of filtered artisan water for her salamander. She explained that her axolotl had a refined palate and refused to swim in tap water. The guests stared as she poured expensive bottled water into the portable tank. The host tried to be polite, but clearly wanted to kick her out. She held the tank up to the light to check clarity. The salamander floated motionless while she critiqued the water mineral content loudly. The sommelier poured himself a drink to handle the stress. 16. A tired customer walked into a mattress firm, dragging a reluctant sheep behind her. She approached the most expensive adjustable bed and tried to lift the animal onto it. The sales associate ran over, waving his arms to stop the madness. The woman shouted that she needed to prove the bed was wool compatible before buying. She claimed her sheep slept in the bed with her and had back problems. The sheep bleated and urinated on the showroom carpet while the woman adjusted the firmness settings. The manager called animal control while the customer argued about the return policy for livestock stains. The sheep refused to move from the memory foam. 17. A confused client entered a luxury tanning salon with a live turkey under her arm. The receptionist dropped her phone when she saw the bird flap its wings. The woman demanded a spray tan session for the turkey immediately. She explained that he looked too pale and needed to be golden brown for family photos. She clarified quickly that he was not food, but a beloved family member. The staff tried to explain that spray tan chemicals were toxic to poultry. The woman accused them of discrimination against birds. The turkey gobbled loudly at the spray nozzle while the owner threatened to write a bad review. Security escorted the bird out before he pecked the booth. 18. A chaotic scene unfolded at the local polling place during the election. A voter walked into the booth with a capuchin monkey on her shoulder. The poll workers intervened when she tried to let the monkey push the buttons. The woman screamed that her monkey had the right to vote because he paid taxes in bananas. She insisted he was a registered independent and knew the candidates better than humans. The monkey grabbed a ballot and started chewing on the paper. Security had to escort the pair out while the woman shouted about constitutional rights. The line of voters watched in shock as the monkey threw the ballot at the exit sign. 19. A traveler at the airport caused a massive delay at the security checkpoint. She refused to put her carrier bag on the conveyor belt for scanning. She screamed at the TSA agents that the radiation would ruin her ferret's fertility. The line behind her grew longer as she hugged the bag to her chest. She claimed her ferret was planning to start a family and the scanner was too risky. The agents explained that all items must be screened for safety. The woman tried to run through the metal detector, holding the ferret high in the air. Security tackled her while the ferret escaped and ran toward the luggage. The airport was shut down for an hour. 20. A quiet afternoon at the public library was ruined by a woman and her rabbit. She placed the bunny on a table and opened a rare encyclopedia. The librarian rushed over when she saw the rabbit chewing on the pages. The woman screamed that her bunny should be allowed to eat the book. She claimed he was absorbing knowledge through digestion and would become smarter. The librarian tried to save the damaged book while the woman held on to the rabbit. She argued that the library was public property and the books belonged to everyone. The rabbit finished eating the letter A before they were kicked out. The woman vowed to return with carrots. 21. A hipster woman walked into a famous bakery, holding a large gray rat in her hands. She marched straight to the kitchen door where the baker was mixing dough. The staff stopped her and pointed to the no pets sign on the wall. She ignored them and insisted her rat was a freelance health inspector. She claimed he needed to sniff the sourdough starter to verify the yeast quality. The baker screamed as the rat tried to jump into the flour bin. She argued that her rat had a nose for bacterial imbalances. The customers gagged as she held the rodent over the fresh pastries. The police arrived to escort the inspector out. 22. A wealthy rancher arrived at the pristine Tesla showroom, pulling a trailer behind her truck. She led a confused baby cow onto the polished white floor tiles. The sales team watched in horror as the calf slid toward the models. The woman demanded to see the front trunk of the newest vehicle immediately. She explained she needed to verify if the calf fit comfortably inside the frunk. The manager tried to explain that the storage space was for charging cables, not livestock. She refused to buy the car without a test fitting. The calf mooed loudly and kicked the bumper while the woman measured the cargo space. 23. An eccentric gardener strolled into the Home Depot garden center with a goat on a rope. The animal immediately began devouring the expensive rows of blooming petunias. An employee in an orange apron ran over to stop the destruction. The woman pushed him away and claimed her goat was providing a free service. She insisted he was an expert at pruning and was helping the store inventory. The employee watched helplessly as the goat chewed through plastic pots and soil. The woman argued that the plants looked much better with the tops eaten off. The manager threatened to bill her for every flower, while the goat bleated and ate a price tag. 24. A serious man walked into an old-school barber shop holding a bearded dragon. He sat in the empty leather chair and placed the lizard on the cape. The barber asked if he was next, but the man pointed to the reptile. He demanded a full beard trim and a hot towel treatment for his lizard. The barber thought it was a joke until the man pulled out money. He explained that his dragon had a date and needed his scales sharpened. The other patrons stopped their conversations to watch the madness. The barber refused to put his scissors near the lizard. The man stormed out, claiming the shop had no style. 25. A frustrated woman stood in the long line at the DMV holding a tree branch. Clinging to the wood was a very slow-moving sloth. When she finally reached the counter, she placed the animal in front of the camera. The clerk asked why a jungle animal was on the desk. The woman argued that her sloth deserved a driver's license ID card. She claimed he was the only family member who never blinked for photos. The line behind her groaned as the sloth slowly reached for the paperwork. The security guard explained that animals cannot drive cars legally. The woman insisted he was excellent in slow traffic zones. 26. An adrenaline junkie arrived at the indoor skydiving center with a tiny pouch. She suited up in a flight suit and walked toward the wind tunnel. The instructor stopped her, seeing a sugar glider peeking out. The woman screamed that her pet was born to fly and needed to feel the wind. She tried to toss the animal into the high-speed airstream. The staff tackled her to prevent the animal from being blown into the fans. She argued that they were denying his natural instincts to glide. The glider looked terrified while the woman was banned from the facility. The manager explained physics did not work that way. 27. A weird visitor entered the dark planetarium dome during a show about the constellations. She quietly reached up and hung a live fruit bat from the expensive star projector. The audience screamed as the bat's shadow covered the artificial sky. The astronomer stopped the show and turned on the bright lights. The woman yelled that they were ruining the immersive night sky experience. She claimed the bat added realism that the machine lacked. The bat screeched and flew around, causing panic. The security team chased the flying mammal while the woman complained about a refund. The children cried as the bat landed on a telescope. 28. A mother in a bikini argued with a lifeguard at the top of a huge water slide. She held a slimy bullfrog in her hands and pointed to the tube. She demanded her frog be allowed to go down the tornado slide alone. The lifeguard stated riders must have a wristband and be human. The woman screamed that her frog was an amphibian and loved water features. She tried to push the frog into the water while kids waited. The lifeguard blew his whistle and radioed for help. The woman insisted the frog was bored in his tank and needed an adrenaline rush. The frog croaked and jumped into the pool below. 29. A wealthy member of a private country club brought a white goose onto the green. The other golfers tried to focus, but the bird kept making noises. The woman got angry when players asked her to silence the animal. She argued that they were being rude by not letting her goose honk freely. She claimed the honking was encouragement for their backswings. A ball hit the sand trap, and the goose chased after it aggressively. The course marshal drove up in his cart to address the situation. The woman threatened to cancel her membership if her goose was silenced. The bird bit the marshal on the leg. 30. A hiker walked into the camping section of REI with a black bear cub on a leash. She grabbed a down sleeping bag and unzipped it on the floor. The staff watched in terror as she tried to stuff the bear inside. The woman explained she needed to check the size before purchase. She claimed she wanted to make sure they could cuddle comfortably on the trail. The bear growled and ripped the expensive fabric with his sharp claws. The manager slowly backed away and called the ranger station. The woman complained that the mummy bag was too tight for his shoulders. The cub rolled around in the feathers happily. 31. A spiritual woman entered a quiet acupuncture clinic carrying a small glass terrarium. She laid face down on the table and asked the doctor to step aside. She opened the jar and pulled out a large black scorpion with a sharp tail. The practitioner gasped and backed against the wall in pure horror. The woman demanded that her scorpion be allowed to treat her back pain. She claimed he was a natural practitioner who knew exactly where to sting. The doctor explained that venom was not part of the standard treatment plan. The woman argued that his stinger was nature's needle and much more effective. She tried to place the arachnid on her spine while the receptionist dialed emergency services. 32. A confused patient sat in the optometrist's exam chair with a large horned owl on her arm. The doctor lowered the lights to begin the vision test for the woman. She interrupted him and insisted her owl take the test first. She claimed the bird had superior night vision and needed to check the chart accuracy. The doctor tried to explain that birds cannot read English letters. The woman argued that he was discriminating against avian intelligence. The owl hooted loudly and flapped his wings, knocking over a tray of lenses. The patient demanded a prescription for corrective contacts for the bird. The doctor slowly backed out of the room as the owl stared him down. 33. A teenage girl stood at the edge of the deepest concrete bowl at the local skate park. She screamed for everyone to stop skating immediately because she had a VIP guest. The skaters watched as she placed a massive tortoise at the drop-in point. She pushed the heavy shell, and the turtle slid slowly down the concrete ramp. She claimed he loved the half-pipe and wanted to be an extreme athlete. The skaters yelled that she was blocking the flow and endangering the animal. She insisted her turtle was shredding the bowl better than them. The turtle reached the bottom and tucked his head in fear. The park ranger arrived to banish the reptile from the ramps. 34. A pretentious tourist walked through the silent halls of a prestigious art museum with a pigeon. The bird sat on her shoulder, bobbing its head at the priceless paintings. A security guard approached and told her animals were strictly forbidden inside. The woman screamed that her pigeon was a renowned art critic from New York. She insisted he needed to coo at the marble statues to express his critique. The bird defecated on the floor in front of a Renaissance masterpiece. The woman clapped her hands and claimed it was a performance art piece. The guard grabbed her arm while other visitors stared in shock. The pigeon flew up to the high-ceiling rafters. 35. A fierce woman stood in the middle of a designated drone flying field with a leather glove. Perched on her hand was a large falcon with a hood over its eyes. She screamed at the drone pilots to ground their devices immediately or face legal action. She claimed her bird owned the sky and the drones were committing airspace harassment. The hobbyists argued that this was a park specifically built for remote control planes. She threatened to release the falcon to hunt down their expensive electronics. The bird screeched and flapped its wings, ready to attack. The pilots landed their drones in panic while the woman declared victory over the robotic invaders. 36. A dramatic customer marched into Bath & Body Works holding a large white swan. The bird hissed at the shoppers, browsing the scented candles near the entrance. The woman slammed a half-empty bottle of stress relief soap on the counter. She demanded a full refund because the product was defective and misleading. She explained that the soap did not make her swan's feathers fluffy enough during his bath. The cashier looked at the wet and angry bird in total confusion. The woman argued that the eucalyptus scent made the swan aggressive instead of relaxed. The bird snapped at the cash register while the manager tried to process the return. 37. An indecisive homeowner stood at the color wall in Sherwin-Williams holding a small lizard. She pressed the chameleon against various paint chips and waited for him to change color. A line formed behind her as she rejected every single sample card. She demanded the paint mixer create a custom gallon that matched his mood exactly. The employee tried to explain that the lizard kept changing colors every second. The woman screamed that they were incompetent and did not understand color theory. She insisted her living room walls needed to reflect the reptile's inner emotions. The chameleon turned a dark, angry red while the employee gave up and walked to the break room. 38. A young woman pulled her convertible into the automatic bay of a busy car wash. She waved the attendant over and showed him a river otter in the passenger seat. She requested that he spray the tricolor foam directly onto them inside the car. She claimed her otter needed a sensory spa experience with the pink and blue bubbles. The attendant explained that the chemicals were for clear coats and not for fur. The woman argued that he was denying her pet a luxury bath. The otter chirped and tried to climb out of the window. The line of cars honked while she refused to move without the foam. 39. An impatient customer stood at the post office counter with a young kangaroo on a leash. She slapped a stack of certified letters onto the desk and glared at the clerk. She demanded he place the stamped envelopes directly into the kangaroo's pouch for safekeeping. She claimed the metal mailboxes were unsafe and her pet was a secure courier. The clerk stared at the animal, which was currently eating a priority mail sticker. The woman insisted that federal law allowed marsupials to transport government documents. The line of people watched in disbelief as the kangaroo hopped onto the scale. The clerk refused to touch the pouch and close his window. 40. A determined skating coach blew a whistle on the side of a crowded public ice rink. She walked onto the ice wearing boots and leading a waddling penguin. She shouted for all the hockey players and figure skaters to clear the ice immediately. She demanded the entire rink be empty so her penguin could practice his routine alone. She claimed he had stage fright and could not perform with others watching. The skaters refused to leave the ice they had paid to use. The woman argued that her bird was a prodigy and needed space. The penguin slipped and slid on his belly while the Zamboni driver honked his horn. 41. A frantic bride stood at the entrance of the wedding chapel, pulling hard on a rope. Attached to the rope was a 6-foot-tall llama wearing a pink silk dress. The priest blocked the aisle and refused to let the farm animal inside the holy church. The bride screamed that the llama was her maid of honor and belonged at the altar next to her. She claimed her human friends were jealous and the llama looked much better in photos. The groom buried his face in his hands while the guests gasped. She threatened to cancel the wedding if the llama wasn't allowed to hold the bouquet. The animal spit on the expensive carpet. 42. A dramatic woman sat in a fine Italian restaurant with a container of dirt on the table. She ordered the spaghetti bolognese but started screaming when the plate arrived. She pointed to the pasta and then to her pet earthworms wriggling in the dirt. She claimed the noodles looked too much like her babies and it was triggering her anxiety. The waiter tried to explain that it was just pasta made from flour. She demanded the chef come out and apologize to the worms for the mockery. Other diners lost their appetites as she held a worm up to the sauce. She insisted the menu was offensive. The manager asked her to leave immediately. 43. An eccentric older woman walked into a jewelry store clutching a velvet bag. She demanded to see the appraiser immediately for a high-value item. The staff put on white gloves expecting a rare diamond necklace. The woman opened the bag and dumped a gray garden rock onto the counter. She demanded they appraise her pet rock for $1 million. She claimed it had sentimental geological value that money could not buy. The jeweler stared at the stone in silence, while the woman praised its shape. She insisted it was millions of years old and therefore priceless. The security guard escorted her out as she screamed about the mineral market. 44. A grumpy mother entered Party City carrying a prickly hedgehog in her bare hands. She walked to the balloon counter where a metal cage held hundreds of colorful balloons. She tried to open the cage door to put her hedgehog inside. The employee rushed over shouting that the sharp quills would pop the inventory. The woman got mad and argued that her hedgehog loved soft rubber textures. She claimed he was depressed and needed a ball pit experience to cheer up. The staff blocked the cage while the hedgehog curled into a spiky ball. The woman insisted they were ruining his birthday party. A balloon popped loudly and the woman demanded compensation. 45. A serious athlete stood on the starting block at the YMCA swimming pool. She wore a cap and goggles, but held a live mallard duck. The lifeguard blew the whistle and told her no animals were allowed in the water. The woman screamed that she demanded a private lane immediately. She explained that her duck was training for the waterfowl Olympics and needed focus. She claimed the other swimmers were splashing too much and breaking his concentration. The duck quacked and flapped his wings ready to dive. The swimmers stopped doing laps to watch the scene. The manager revoked her membership while she argued that the duck was the fastest swimmer in the state. 46. A chaotic resident arrived late to the homeowners association meeting with a trash can. She rolled it to the front of the room and removed the lid. A large raccoon popped his head out and looked at the board members. The woman announced that he was the new head of waste management for the neighborhood. She claimed he knew more about garbage sorting than the current sanitation workers. The board president threatened to call animal control if she did not leave. She argued that the raccoon would work for free food scraps. The raccoon jumped onto the table and stole a donut. The meeting ended in panic as the animal chased the treasurer. 47. A sweaty runner crossed the finish line of the city marathon with her arms raised. She walked up to the volunteer handing out medals and demanded 2 of them. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a slimy giant African snail. She screamed that her snail had completed the entire course with her. She insisted he deserved a medal for his endurance and bravery. The volunteer looked at the shell covered in pocket lint and refused. The runner argued that he was an emotional support athlete. Other runners stared as she tried to hang a medal around the snail's shell. She threatened to disqualify everyone else for not respecting the snail's pace. 48. A visitor at the petting zoo caused a scene near the rabbit enclosure. She was walking a red fox on a leash which terrified the bunnies. The zookeeper ran over and told her that predators were not allowed inside. The woman complained that the rabbits were discriminating against her pet fox. She claimed her fox identified as a herbivore and just wanted to make friends. The rabbits huddled in the corner, shaking with fear while the fox drooled. The woman insisted the zoo was teaching intolerance by separating the species. She tried to lift the fox over the fence to prove he was nice. The security team had to drag her out of the farm area. 49. A fancy shopper entered the perfume department at Macy's with a black and white skunk. The sales associates scattered thinking they were about to be sprayed. The woman assured them his scent glands were removed and he was safe. She picked up a bottle of expensive Chanel and sprayed it near the skunk. She claimed her skunk was the ultimate judge of base notes and fragrance quality. She demanded the staff let him sniff every bottle on the counter. The manager explained that customers were allergic to the animal dander. The woman argued that her skunk had a refined nose superior to humans. The skunk sneezed on a display while the woman critiqued the floral undertones. Well, there you have it. Absolute proof that common sense is officially extinct. If you manage to survive that marathon of entitlement, without screaming you deserve a medal, unlike that runner's pocket snail. Do us a massive favor, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a dose of chaos here on Brain Fumble. Now I have to know, which one of these delusional pet owners actually broke your brain? Was it the spray tan turkey or the voting monkey? Drop your answer in the comments right now.